Hi, I'm Katie Crane, and this is the Pilates Lounge.
Welcome to Season 4, my friends, of the Pilates Lounge podcast. This is a space for movement lovers, Pilates educators, and Pilates professionals who want to think a little bit deeper about the work we do. My name's Katie Crane. I've been teaching Pilates for over 20 years, and along the way, I've worn many hats. Studio owner, teacher trainer, mentor, and lifelong student of the work we do. I'm also a surfer, an adventurer, a mum, a busy wife, and someone who believes that movement is by far more than exercise. On this podcast, we talk about Pilates as a practice, not just what we do on the mat or on the equipment, but how Pilates shapes the way we move, teach, lead, and live our lives. We explore anatomy, health, business, culture, and the evolving identity of Pilates in the modern world. This is a place for honest conversations, lived experience, and perspectives that respect both the lineage of Pilates and the people practicing it today. So thank you so much for being here. Let's dive into the episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Pilates Lounge podcast. My name's Katie Crane. I'm so thrilled that you are here. I'm going to touch on this topic again today, which I actually touched on this topic back in 2024. I can't believe I'm saying that. It's now 2026, July 2026 at that. And when I touched on this topic, I think it was because I kept hearing instructors doing this neutral spine. Lo and behold, I'm still hearing it. So if it's still happening, it still needs to be spoken about. So I'm sorry if this is going over something that you've already learnt from me, but we know as learners that repetition is super important. So this is a different slant on understanding neutral spine. The last episode that I did in 2024, if you want to go back and listen to it, was called Neutral Spine versus Natural Alignment. And I touched on the point that everybody's alignment is different and everybody's understanding of neutral spine is different. And so it's really important that we don't get stuck on these ideologies when it comes to movement. We shouldn't get stuck on ideologies in life at all, but that's probably a bigger topic. And I've only got about half an hour to be with you today. So let's stick to Pilates. It's what I do best. And let's delve into the show. What is neutral spine and why is it even a thing in the Pilates world? I don't think I'd ever heard of the term neutral spine until I started teaching Pilates. And then I was enamored by it for many, many years, probably way too long than what I'd like to admit, because I didn't know any better. And during my teacher training, my initial teacher training, and in fact, during the 4 diplomas that I took part in, I just remember that the conversation around neutral spine, in all of the books, you know, how you receive your manual and it's got, well, back in the day, I'm pretty sure people are still receiving manuals. I'm a big fan of having paper in front of you. I know that it's not the best thing for the environment, but there are times when it is important and learning is one of them. So you open your manual and it tells you the setup of the exercise. So often the setup of the exercise is neutral spine. And then say you're moving through an exercise and even the cueing within the programming often would say maintain neutral spine. What is neutral spine? What does that even mean? Well, I'm here to discuss that with you right now. So I kind of figured that to get started, we would go over some definitions. Now, if you look up like Webster Dictionary or Collins Dictionary, there's no neutral spine because the dictionary has just one word definitions. So I've found this in wikidoc.org. These are the definitions of posture and the definition of neutral spine. So the definition of posture: The word posture comes from the Latin verb ponere, which is defined as to put our place. The general concept of human posture refers to the carriage of the body as a whole, the attitude of the body, or the position of the limbs, like the arms and legs. Good posture is the stance which is attained when the joints are not bent and the spine is aligned and not twisted. In this position, a person is thus able to completely and optimally attain balance and proportion of the body mass and framework. Good posture optimizes breathing and affects the circulation of bodily fluids. Padmasana, or the lotus position, is a central stance in yoga which is used to enhance breathing through good posture. The word Padmasana is a combination of the Sanskrit words Padma, lotus, and asana, posture. Now, neutral spine, still in wikidoc.org, in medicine and occupations concerned with physical fitness, the concept of good posture is referred to as neutral spine. In this context, proper posture or neutral spine is the proper alignment of the body between postural extremes. In its natural alignment, the spine is not straight. It has curves in the thoracic, so the kind of mid upper back, and the lumbar lower region. I mean, actually, there's also a cervical curve, but it doesn't say that here. There is a slight forward curve in the lumbar region, known as lordosis, and a slight backward curve in the thoracic region, known as kyphosis, and a slight extension, there we go, in the tiny cervical vertebra at the top of the spine. In addition, the ears, shoulders, hips, knees, and ankles are aligned as if a plumb line was running from the ears down through the torso into the legs and the feet. In neutral posture, and we learn this in our teacher training, well, most people will learn this in their certificate. In neutral posture, the body is able to function in its strongest, most balanced position. Stress to the joints, muscles, vertebra, and tissue is minimized. In contrast, a non-neutral spine leads to improper posture, and that, especially when walking, puts increased stress on your back and causes discomfort and damage. A non-neutral spine develops as the result of a person's lifestyle. People who sit for long hours on the job are susceptible to a number of misalignments. Neutral spine is ideally maintained while sitting, standing, and sleeping. Well, good luck with maintaining neutral spine and sleeping. I mean, these are definitions in Wikidoc, which I always find fascinating. Anyway, so I'm going to have a look up at another definition while I'm here. Okay, now while we're here, I'm going to go through a couple of other definitions because I think that it's really important that we do look at the etymology of language, of words, but also at different definitions so that we come to our decisions through an educated lens and a critical thinking, not just learning one thing and then living our entire life believing that one thing. Okay, so I've asked Grok for some medical and clinical definitions, and this is what Grok has come up with. Physical therapy perspective. A neutral position for the spine is one with the least rotational stiffness, in the middle of the two extremes of motion. In a normal back, this consists of the three natural curvatures, which is what Wiki said as well. The slight extension of the neck or the cervical, the flexion in the upper back, the thoracic, and the slight extension in the lower back, the lumbar. This can be assumed in various positions, i.e., sitting, standing, etc., and vary slightly between individuals. Now, that information was from Newport Physical Therapy, and then Grok shared it with me. Wikipedia, so the general anatomy summary of neutral spine is, from a side view, the cervical spine curves inward as a lordosis, the thoracic outward as a kyphosis and the lumbar inward as a lordosis. So yes, we're starting to agree with things. A neutral pelvis is slightly anteriorly rotated. This is a proper alignment between postural extremes. That's from Wikipedia. Now, the last one is neurology clinical education. The healthy spine has 3 natural curves supported by muscles, ligaments, and tendons. Neutral alignment keeps these structures working in harmony to cushion the spine from stress. It involves balanced pelvic positioning and muscle activation, e.g., abdominals and back extensors. So, other sources describe it similarly as maintaining the spine's natural curves for efficient movement and minimal joint stress. Now, relation to movement. Neutral spine is not just a static posture, but a dynamic principle. This is still grok for safe and efficient movement. Core stability and load distribution. Maintaining a neutral spine during movement, i.e., lifting, bending, and walking, allows the larger leg and hip muscles to generate power while the core provides stability. This reduces shear and compressive forces on the spinal discs and ligaments. Pelvic wheel mechanics. Movement often originates from pelvic rotation at the hips, not the low back. Tilting the pelvis forward or backward adjusts the lumbar curvature while keeping the overall spine neutral. For example, in lifting, hinging at the hips while bracing the core to preserve neutral alignment. Injury prevention, still with grok. Training with a neutral spine, e.g., in exercises, yoga, or daily activities, helps avoid excessive flexion or extension that can strain tissues. Antagonistic muscle coactivation around the neutral posture supports stability in healthy individuals. Exercise context. In physical therapy and fitness, finding and holding neutral spine, often cued as a slight arch in the low back, not flat, optimizes muscle length tension, relationships, and protects the back during dynamic activities. It is individualized. Therapists may assess it visually or with tools, and a balance of core strength, flexibility, and awareness is key to maintaining it. So these sources. Grok drew from the results from web searches and direct page content from reputable sites. Newport Physical Therapy, Wikipedia, Central Florida Neurology, and additional supporting info from physical therapy, fitness, and research-related links, i.e. PubMed mentions of studies of spinal stability. So this is the information on the World Wide Web. Fantastic. Now I have a good understanding of what neutral spine is, but do I need to be teaching it in everything that I'm doing? Now, the thing is with movement, this is what I've learnt over the years and years and years and years, is there is no one way. What works for one person doesn't work for the next person. And as Pilates professionals, as movement educators, as leaders in education in general, if that's what you want to be, and I hope you do, because you're out in the world telling people how to move their body and how to do things better. What I've come to realize is that we cannot be stagnant in the way that we teach, and we can never assume that whatever is working for one person, or even whatever is working for 100 people that come through the studio, I can guarantee that there's going to be somebody who comes in the room and it does not work for them. And what I mean by not working for them is that if you try and teach them to maintain what you perceive to be neutral spine, you can actually leave them feeling worse for wear, in more pain, and less connected than when they walked in the room. And so, of course, we need to understand. Yes, we do need to understand what is neutral spine, what is neutral pelvis. But no, we do not need to be forcing that on every single person who comes in the room. I think that one of the most powerful things you can do as a teacher is learn what the people in the room need and then give them the tools that are going to help them get to that point. Or, like learn their goals, know what it is. Why is somebody here? Are they here just to move? Are they here just to experience something positive? Are they here to decrease their pain? Are they here to feel more flexible, feel stronger? Are they here to regulate their nervous system? Are they here because their husband, aunt, friend, or cousin has forced them to come here? What are they here for? And how can you meet them where they're at? Now, I realize that this can be very difficult if you've got a class of 10, 15 people and you're trying to serve everybody in the room. In that case, I suggest that you teach in themes or concepts and you let the room know. This is what we're working on at the moment, and this is what I hope for you. By the time you leave this class today, I hope that you have understood your body's alignment in general. I'm not trying to teach you neutral pelvis, neutral spine. Maybe I'll touch on it at some stage, but you are not walking around with neutral pelvis, neutral spine. And even, I don't know if you recognize, but when I just read exactly as was written, one of those definitions was that you maintain your neutral spine when you're walking. Well, I'm going to call complete bullshit on that. What happens when you walk, actually, and it even happens as you breathe. Right now, do this with me. This is a great practice. Just sit there. Say you take a normal breath in and normal breath out. Okay, you breathed in and out. Well done. Hey friend, thanks so much for listening. Did you know that you can now find us on YouTube at youtube.com/The Pilates Professional? Now, if this episode resonates with you, please share it with someone else who would benefit from hearing it. Back to the show. Now, I want you to try and maintain what feels like in your body. And you got to remember that you're a body worker. You are somebody who understands movement. You are somebody who lives in their body every single day. Not every person who walks in the room does. A lot of people are very disconnected to their body. And it's not fair for us to assume that people understand where their body is in space. Then we lay them down on a mat or we get them on a piece of equipment that is moving that they're really not that familiar with. And we're asking for them to all of a sudden step inside their body where they've never been before and know where their spine is in space. Now, first of all, your spine is right in the middle of your body. So it's a long, long way in underneath skin and adipose and joints that hurt and muscles that are tight or wound up and like underneath the food that you've eaten. And I'm asking you to understand where that is and what shape it is at. It just seems ridiculous to me. But okay, that's my little rant. But let's come back to what we were doing. Now I want you to, as a movement professional, you understand your body. Maybe this you even struggle with. So if you struggle with this and you're a movement educator, imagine how much somebody who never thinks about their body and they come to you for 50 minutes a week or an hour a week and you're trying to get them to do this. As you inhale, a deep, deep inhale. And then as you exhale, a deep, deep exhale, what actually happens to your spine? As you inhale, your spine extends a little bit. In fact, your spine has to extend to even give space for your lungs to expand, for your diaphragm to sink down. You have to extend your spine on a deep inhale. And so if you extend your spine on a deep inhale, what happens on an exhale? Your spine, what's the opposite of extend? I just had a brain fart. Flexes, sorry. So do it again and recognize what actually happens in your spine. Deep inhale, there's extension. Deep exhale, there's flexion. Do it again. Deep inhale, You lift up tall, deep exhale, you sink down a little bit. So if you're teaching your people to maintain neutral throughout movement and you're asking them to breathe, what is it that you're trying to get them to do? You're trying then, and don't worry, because I taught this for so long. If you're asking your class to maintain neutral while they're breathing in and out, you're inviting rigidity, and that ain't serving no one. Just saying. So neutral spine is never the goal. Neutral spine is a starting point, it's a reference point, it's information, it's an understanding. But we really don't maintain pure neutral spine through movement. We can maintain stability, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing for people. We can maintain stability, but even stability is not rigidity. So my husband's a keen fisherman. When we're out on the boat and the boat is rocking all over the place, is the boat stable or not? Yes, the answer is yes, my friends. The boat is still stable, even though it's rocking around over the place. If the boat was unstable, then the boat would tip over and it would fill with water. And where I live, we'd probably get eaten by crocodiles. So I hope that the boat is stable. The fact that the boat is moving does not make it unstable. It actually makes it very stable. We can take away the stability in the boat by, for example, putting too much load on one side or too much load on one end. Say we have an esky sitting on one side and we're catching so many fish that we fill that esky up with fish, and then the boat tips over because the boat was unstable. Where we should have put the esky was somewhere a little bit more to the middle of the boat to make sure that it maintained stability so it could move around in the water without tipping. That is stability. So stability is not rigidity. So we move in and out of neutral spine 1,000,001 times a day. And we definitely do not maintain neutral spine when we're sleeping, which was one of the wild definitions that like wiki.org had. The point is, we must be learning our reference points. We must be learning from many different modalities, from many different sources. And then you, as the critical thinker, decides what source of information is appropriate for you at the time. Because even information, like the information that I give you, is based on my perspective, my opinions, and my sources of learning. Is it always the absolute truth? No. Is it the truth that, as I understand today? Absolutely. One of my values is truth, and I seek truth in everything that I do. But I only know so much. So for years and years and years, I was teaching maintain neutral spine in so many different exercises, including things like footwork and feet in straps and hands in straps. Now, some people were probably maintaining neutral spine, but not everybody. Was I harming anyone who was not maintaining neutral spine? No. In fact, if I tried to force neutral spine onto everybody, then some people ended up with more tension, with more pain, with more discomfort, and with more poor function than if I just let them be. But I didn't understand movement that well over the years. You know, maybe for the first 5, 10 years of my teaching, I was really just teaching what I had been taught. And what I had been taught, even through 4 diplomas of learning, I had been taught to teach maintain neutral body position. And I'm not saying that those certificates were wrong, but my understanding of what was being taught to me was lacking. And it's not until I then went and did other courses, and specifically in anatomy and in movement and in brain and in language and in learning, that's when I really started to understand what it was that was trying to be taught to me so that I could pass it on. So, when is neutral spine not the goal? It's not the goal in movement in general. So, I tend to teach now, I do tend to teach neutral spine to my student teachers. We need to know. We need to know reference points when it comes to movement. I sometimes touch on neutral spine with my clients, but I don't get stuck on it. It's just part of the process of what I'm teaching. For example, say the class is laying supine on the mat, their feet are on the floor, and I'm getting them to do the pelvic clocks. You know, when you say you imagine that you've got your analog clock sitting on your pelvis, your pubic bone is number 6, your belly button is number 12, and you're rocking and rolling from 6 to 12. I might teach my clients that one direction is known as an anterior tilt, the other direction is known as a posterior tilt. Before the class has ended, they've already forgotten those terms, and if I wanted to ask them what their anterior and posterior tilt is, they probably don't remember, but the words just come out of my mouth because I've been looking at anatomy for so long that sometimes those words happen. Whether or not it's serving people, it remains to be argued in this particular episode. But I know that they're moving from posterior to anterior. And somewhere in between that rock and roll, that number 6 and number 12, the posterior anterior, somewhere in between those two is their neutral spine and neutral pelvis. Of course, because if you're rocking the pelvis, then the spine moves. I'm hoping the spine moves, unless you've got like rods in your spine or your spine is completely fused and it's not moving, then it's not moving. So, understanding your neutral spine is just a reference point of you starting to feel where your body is in space. That's also asking somebody to feel where their body is in space, and not everybody does. So, teaching neutral spine to somebody who does not understand where their body is can be really detrimental to their learning. So, there's this idea that I play around with, and I find that it's really, really helpful for a lot of people. And I see light bulb moments in the class all the time. Not for everyone, but remember, we're teaching to 10 different people. I'm trying to speak in 10 different languages in that class because I cannot assume that everybody understands the same things because I don't understand things the same. You don't understand the same things. So, for some people, maybe I'm talking about where your spine is in space, the shape of your spine. What do you feel? Some people are like, got no idea what she's talking about. So for them, I might be talking about where is the pressure in your feet, or where is the pressure in your head, or where is the pressure in your arms when you're laying flat on the mat, when you're laying supine on the mat. If you change the pressure in your feet, does that change the pressure of your back on the mat? If you tilt your head up and down, does that change what is happening in the rest of your body? So we've got to figure out ways to teach to all different people. I remember working with an instructor for quite a few years, and she used to teach that neutral spine, when you were laying on your back, she needed to be able to put her fist underneath your low mid back, underneath your lumbar spine. Now, for me, if you tried to put your fist underneath my lumbar spine when I'm laying on the mat, I would have to put my lumbar spine into a massive extension and my pelvis into a massively anterior tilt. That would be very uncomfortable for my back, especially because my sacroiliac joints tend to get a little bit inflamed if I force too much extension. But for her, that's how her spine was. So her concept of neutral spine was actually with a really big lordosis. But for her, it made sense because that's what her neutral spine was. And then we would get clients who had a flat back or clients who had a lot of tightness in their back. They wouldn't want to go with her as an instructor because she was trying to get everybody to have the same shaped spine as she had. Whereas with my back, if I tried to get her to change the shape of her back to be the same as mine, then she would feel like she was really having to tuck her tail under and her glutes would get very tight and her abdominals would get very tight because she was trying to go too far in the opposite direction. So, neutral spine can be a reference point for people, but it's not necessarily the same for everybody. And it doesn't necessarily help everyone move better. What does happen a lot of the time is as people start to get stronger, more flexible, more mobile or less mobile in areas in their body where they have had compensatory patterns, too much activation, not enough activation, or not enough innovation, then maybe the shape of their body starts to change, but it's not something that I can force. So rather than trying to get people to get into this perfect body shape, our job as Pilates professionals is to observe, assess, and then work with the bodies in front of us. Can you do that in a class situation? Yes, absolutely. The way that I do it, I watch people come in the door. Before they've even started the class, the best place to see people move is in nature, not in the studio, because everybody's trying to move like their personal best once they start doing activities with you, and people actually become a little bit more rigid because they're trying to be perfect. You wanna observe people as they walk in the room, so be at your class early, don't be the last one to come in the door, and observe people doing things like putting their belongings into the wherever their belongings go, taking their shoes off, rolling out their mat, getting on and off the mat. Those are natural movements. Then you can start to figure out what it is that people need in the class so that you can help them find alignment that is more comfortable. It's not necessarily better alignment, but what I'm always looking at is where is there tension? Where is there too much tension in the person's body? If their head is forwards, if they have some kyphosis, so their shoulders are rounded, their head is pushed forwards, potentially they're going to feel a lot of tension through their neck and shoulders. So, what part of the repertoire can I choose for them to help alleviate that tension and ultimately, yes, start to improve their posture through better movement patterns? So maybe then the person with kyphosis, their head is already forward. You can see that their head looks super heavy for them while they're walking, like it's a bowling ball trying to roll forwards off of their body and it's pulling their whole upper body forwards. Do you think then that hundreds is going to be the ideal exercise for them? No, probably not. So, what exercises could you put into your class that's actually going to help them alleviate that tension, open up their chest, get stronger in the back line to start to help them lift up a little bit? These are the things that understanding neutral spine is going to help us put together in the class. So rather than getting fixated on teaching neutral spine and maintaining it, use your observation skills. Who in the class struggles with neutral spine and what can I do with them that's going to help bring them into it without forcing them? I really hope that that helps you because seeing movement like that and not being so fixated in my teaching has actually helped improve the way that I teach, improve the language that I use, and also continually assess people in the room through movement throughout the class so that I can better serve my clients. Neutral spine is not the goal. Neutral spine is a piece of information for you so that you know what repertoire you want to be putting into your class to help people move better. My name's Katie Crane. I'm the Pilates professional. I hope that this episode has helped you somewhat improve your teaching so that you can serve people better. And you know what? If you know somebody who is fixated on teaching neutral spine all the time, please share this episode with them. I could go on about this topic for days and days and days, and I'll probably come back and visit it again sometime, put a different slant on it. But yeah, please share this with people that you know. Let's keep having conversations about what it is that we're learning, how it is that we're learning to teach, and keep improving on that so that we can be better educators and ultimately a better industry. I'll be coming to you next time. The next episode that I record, I'll probably be back in Indonesia, my month on, month off, to place where I belong when I'm not in studio. I look forward to reaching out to you again. Please reach out to me and remember to join us on the Pilates Lounge podcast next week. And also be sure to join me on my email newsletters so that you can stay in the loop for some exciting things coming up on the Pilates Professional. See you soon. And that's a wrap, my friend. Now, before you go, make sure you check out the show notes. That's exactly where you'll find anything we're offering alongside this very episode and the link to subscribe to the Pilates News newsletter. Our subscribers receive free handouts and resources connected to the topics we explore right here. They're specifically created for Pilates professionals, movement educators, and Pilates lovers just like you. So, until the next episode,